just 15 or 16, whereas further south, temperatures again getting into the mid-20s easily in those sunny spells. But temperatures will rise again as we go through the weekend. Met Office do have the extreme heat warning in place. See the Met Office website for more details on that. We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, Matt. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Good morning. Welcome to The Point with me, Mercy Moreki and Bev Turner. We're on your TV, radio and online. And we're here again with all of today's biggest stories, lots of discussion with our expert guests and lots of views as well.
That's right. Get in touch with us throughout the show, won't you, as usual. gbviews@gbnews.uk. We'll get to those as we go throughout the show. But first of all, here's the very important news.
Good morning, it's 1 minute past 10. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. 6 contenders remain in the battle to replace Boris Johnson after Jeremy Hunt and Nadhim Zahawi were knocked out of the first round yesterday. Mr Hunt is now backing the former Chancellor Rishi Sunak, while the former Defence Secretary Penny Mordaunt has emerged as one of the favourites to make the final 2. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, who came third, is expected to launch her campaign any moment now. The second round of voting takes place this afternoon, with the result expected at around 3. The candidate with the fewest votes will be eliminated. Social Care Minister Jillian Keegan is backing Rishi Sunak and told GB News he has widespread support.
Well, if you look at Rishi, actually, he's got people from all across the spectrum, north, south, red wall seats, shire seats, all different wings of the party, all different views on Brexit, you know, different views on many different issues. He's actually united quite a large coalition. And as you say, he's also had pretty much every former Chancellor who is a Conservative Chancellor who is still alive saying that is the right thing to do for this time. This is what we would be doing. This is the sensible approach.
Low-income households will start receiving £326 from today, the first of 2 payments to ease the cost of living crisis. More than 8 million households on means-tested benefits will start receiving the money automatically with no need to apply. A second instalment of £324 will be transferred in the autumn. It's part of the government's £37 billion support package. Head of Debt Free, Matt Dromfield, told GB News there's been a huge rise in people seeking help.
Now, every little helps, and yes, it will go some way for a few weeks, but the reality is 2 in 5 of our clients that come through our doors say that low income is the reason of their financial issues. And when supermarkets are having to put security tags on a packet of Lurpak or cheese, we know we've got a real issue. And this might help with the cost of packed lunches for kids for a few weeks at school, but it's not going to change the game massively.
Right, well, we're going to cross live to Westminster, where Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is expected any moment now to launch her campaign to become the next leader of the Conservative Party and Prime Minister.
In her beliefs, and she has an unmatched track record of delivery in government to match this. Liz is ready to hit the ground running to deliver the fresh approach that working families need. The next election will be about the economy, and Liz is ready to deliver radical change from day one. With an appalling, savage war in Ukraine raging, now is the time for a Prime Minister who can hit the ground running from day one to ensure that Vladimir Putin is defeated. Through her work as International Trade Secretary and Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss has done more than anybody in government to deliver on the promise of Brexit. And I know that she will deliver even more as our Prime Minister. It's coming. She will be here very shortly. Fantastic. 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 You're going to do a brilliant job.
Friends, we are at a critical moment for our country. We face huge challenges in the aftermath of COVID and Putin's appalling war in Ukraine. Now is the time to be bold. We cannot have business as usual economic management, which has led to low growth for decades. We need to deliver on Brexit and the opportunities it offers. And we need to win the fight for freedom at home and around the world. Yeah. That is why I am putting myself forward for leadership of the Conservative and Unionist Party and our great country. I will campaign as a Conservative and I will govern as a Conservative. I can lead, I can make tough decisions, and I can get things done. I am ready to be Prime Minister from day one. I got to where I am today through hard work and aspiration. I didn't come from a traditional Conservative background. I grew up in Paisley and I went to comprehensive school in Leeds. Many of the children I were at school with were let down by low expectations, poor educational standards, and a lack of opportunity. Too much talent went to waste. I didn't believe, and I don't believe, that it has to be that way. And that's why I went into politics. I care deeply about our country. I want us to be an aspiration nation where people from all backgrounds and all parts of the United Kingdom have the opportunity to have a great education, be able to start their own businesses and realise their dreams. Everyone should have the same opportunity, regardless of their background or where they live. And that is what levelling up is, in a Conservative way. I have a plan to make Britain a high-growth economy over the next 10 years through bold supply-side reform. We will cut taxes, helping businesses invest in their future. We'll tackle the cost of energy and we'll control government spending. We will create new low-tax, low-regulation zones to attract investment in communities up and down our country, creating new hubs for innovation and enterprise. We can revitalise local areas in the same way as we regenerated the London Docklands. Families are a vital part of our lives and a crucial building block for a stable society. They don't just look after themselves, but they're part of communities, charities, and even businesses. We will review the taxation of families to ensure that people aren't penalised for taking time out to care for children or elderly relatives. We'll turbocharge the rural economy by focusing on farmers growing food and cutting the pointless regulation that gets in their way. We need to be honest with the public. This will be tough. It will take time, but I am determined to deliver. I know I can deliver because I have taken bold decisions and made bold reforms throughout my career. After working in the energy and telecoms industry, I set up the Free Enterprise Group in Parliament. I made the case with like-minded colleagues for an open, competitive, dynamic economy. In government, I've consistently delivered and I've taken tough decisions. I stood up to Vladimir Putin by targeting Russia with the toughest sanctions his regime has ever seen. And I would continue to lead the free world in opposing Putin and making sure that Ukraine prevails. I don't give in to Whitehall. I don't give in to vested interests. And I don't give in to the naysayers. I've proved time and time again that I can deliver even when it's difficult. As Trade Secretary, I struck dozens of trade deals with major partners such as Australia and Japan, when people told me that it simply wouldn't be possible. In the face of EU intransigence, I developed the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill. It breaks the deadlock in a legal way, upholding the Belfast Good Friday Agreement and preventing the tearing apart of our precious union. As Chief Secretary to the Treasury, I had a firm grip on our nation's finances. I am prepared to do whatever it takes to get the job done. That, my friends, is why I am trusted to deliver. We have to level with the British public that our economy will not get back on track overnight. Times are going to be tough, but I know that I can get us on an upward trajectory by 2024. We can get there by delivering our promises, ensuring spades are in the ground, people are in jobs, and money is being generated in local areas right across our country. I can know it can be delivered by working relentlessly together as a team and focusing on delivery, delivery, and delivery. That's how we can turn things around, and that's how the Conservatives can win the next election. We don't have a moment to lose, and I will work with colleagues from right across the party to lead a strong and united team. Let me be clear. Labour is beatable. The Liberals are beatable. There isn't a great groundswell of support in the country for Sir Keir Starmer or Sir Ed Davey. What the British people are crying out for is a modern and united Conservative Party, ready with the courage of its convictions to deliver on the promises that we have made. So, my friends, you can trust me to get the economy going, to get money back in people's pockets, and to help squeezed families. Together, we will level up the country in a Conservative way, making it an aspiration nation. Together, we will continue to defy the voices of decline and stand tall on the world stage. So let's get on and deliver for our great country like never before. Thank you. I'll start with Beth Rigby of Sky.
Thank you. Liz Truss, you've just said that the country wants a modern and united Conservative Party, but the two candidates ahead of you in this race have one thing in common. They're a break from Boris Johnson. Rishi Sunak resigned from his government, you did not, and Penny Mordaunt was never in his cabinet, or only for a brief moment. And they've leapfrogged you in the race. Given the bitter divisions of recent months, is Boris Johnson's tacit backing of you the kiss of death for your candidacy, given that the party wants change, even if you did not? Thank you.
The change we need to deliver is change on the economy. We've had sluggish growth for 2 decades, and we need a new economic plan. And I'm somebody who can work with a team from right across the Conservative Party to deliver on transforming our economy, cutting taxes for ordinary people across the country, getting investment into all areas from the north to the south, Scotland, Northern Ireland and Wales, helping us deliver the next general election, but most importantly, helping us deliver a brighter future for Britain.
Could I just ask, why didn't you resign from Boris Johnson's cabinet when so many colleagues did?
I'm a loyal person. I'm loyal to Boris Johnson. I supported our Prime Minister's aspirations, and I want to deliver the promise of the 2019 manifesto. And what we need to do now is deliver, deliver, deliver. And I am the person in this race with the record of delivery. I've taken the tough decisions at the Foreign Office, at the Trade Department. I've got a fantastic team of people in my campaign team and more broadly across the party. And I want to go in from day one in Downing Street and make sure we deliver on the promises we set out in 2019. Chris Mason.
Chris Mason from BBC News. How can you be the credible agent of change, given that you have sat around Boris Johnson's cabinet table throughout his time as Prime Minister? And if I may, how worried are you that your campaign is being trampled by the March of Mordant?
Well, as you know, I've been focusing on making sure that Vladimir Putin is defeated in Ukraine. And we led that effort. We led the fight for the free world. We put on more sanctions than any other country. We have encouraged others to stand tough. We were the first country to send weapons to Ukraine. And I'm proud of that record. Now, internally within government, I was critical within Cabinet of the proposed national insurance rise. I was a Cabinet Minister who spoke out against it at the time. But I'm a loyalist. I believe in collective responsibility. But now the Prime Minister has stood down. I think it's right that I'm honest about my views on the economy. I spent 2 years as Chief Secretary. I can deliver a different economic plan that is credible and will work for the people of Britain and deliver on the promises that we made in the 2019 manifesto. Thank you. Anusha.
Thank you. Anusha Kristana, ITV News. Elizabeth Truss, you voted Remain and you remained in the Cabinet when tax rises came in. Penny Mordaunt backed Brexit from the start. Some say she's the real candidate of the right. Given that analysts say she is going to beat you, wouldn't the right thing be for party unity to swing behind her?
Well, since the referendum in 2016, I have done so much to deliver on the promises of Brexit and the opportunities of Brexit. I've delivered dozens of trade deals at the Department of Trade. I've delivered the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill to fix the issues that we have in Northern Ireland. And as Prime Minister, I am committed to unleashing the full opportunities of Brexit, the ability to do things differently, whether that's in financial services, whether it's in regulation, to really get our economy going. And I'm the candidate in this race that has the record of delivery. I've shown that I'm prepared to get difficult stuff done in Whitehall. I'm ready to hit the ground running from day one. We've only got 2 years till the general election. And my experience, my record of delivery is needed to get the job done. Jack Elsom.
Thank you, Foreign Secretary. You said just now you wanted to be honest about your plan for the economy. The government in which you serve currently has a tax plan to cut the basic rate of income tax by 1p by 2024. That's not enough, is it? And what would you like to see income tax cut to?
Well, on day one, we would start by having a new budget and a new spending review. It's vitally important that we reverse the national insurance rises, that we don't increase corporation tax because we need to get investment into all parts of our country. I also want to put in place low tax zones, particularly in areas like the north of England, to help attract enterprise. I think that's vitally important. And the way I see the COVID debt is it's a one-off event, it's a 1 in 100-year event. We should pay that debt off over a longer period of time. That is how I would fund my tax reductions, whilst at the same time laying out a clear plan, a clear 10-year plan to reform the government and the public sector, and to do all those supply-side reforms I've talked about to really get the economy motoring, because we have had anemic growth for the past 2 decades. And more of the same simply isn't going to work to deliver for the people of Britain. Jason Groves.
Well, as you've been hearing, Foreign Secretary Liz Truss there launching her campaign to become the next Tory leader and Prime Minister, and she vowed to create low tax, low regulation zones, do whatever it takes to get the job done. Times will be tough, she's warned, but trust to get the economy going. And to another breaking story just in, Kevin Spacey has pleaded not guilty to charges of sexual assault at the Old Bailey. The Oscar-winning actor is accused of 4 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of causing a person to engage in sexual activity without consent. His trial will start in June next year here in the UK. The attacks are alleged to have taken place between 2005 and 2013. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens after the break. Mercy and Bev will be back here with To The Point. But first, it's the weather for you.
Good morning, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update from the Met Office. Some fairly typical summer weather over the next few days. However, the heat may well start to build as we go through the weekend and into next week. This area of high pressure is building in across the UK, bringing the southern half of the UK sunny spells today. But around the top of that high pressure, the breeze coming in from the northwest, introducing more cloud and a few showers across Scotland and Northern Ireland this morning. And we'll see a few more developing across parts of northern England as we go through the morning as well. The odd one for the Midlands maybe, but further south, most places dry, sunny spells across southern England and South Wales, and not too many showers getting to eastern Scotland either. Temperature-wise, well, quite a north-south split. We're only in the high teens across the north. Further south, mid-20s, maybe 28 or 29 across the south. Not as hot as recent days, but still pretty warm. Through this evening, those showers will continue for a time over northeast England and northern Scotland, but they should tend to fade, most places becoming dry until another area of cloud starts to tip in from the northwest, turning things cloudy for Northern Ireland and Western Scotland as we start Friday. It should be a reasonably comfortable night for sleeping. Temperatures may stay in the low teens, but not as humid as nights earlier in the week. The nights and the days are going to get warmer, though, as we head into the weekend. Friday, again, set fair by and large across the south. Sunny spells to come tomorrow across East Anglia, southern England and the Midlands. But clouds spinning in again across northern England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, with a little bit of showery rain here and there. The far north of Scotland may actually be largely dry through Friday afternoon. Again, on the cool side here, just 15 or 16, whereas further south, temperatures again getting into the mid-20s easily in those sunny spells. But temperatures will rise again as we go through the weekend. Met Office do have the extreme heat warning in place. See the Met Office website for more details on that.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment. We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go? Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
A very good morning. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Martin Moroki, and Beth Turner. We're on your TV, radio and online, and here's what's coming up today.
Well, just before the break, we brought to you Foreign Secretary Liz Truss. She has been speaking out, setting out her ambition to be the next Prime Minister. We thought it was very vanilla and basically just word salad, but we'll discuss that a bit more in the next couple of hours. So who are the favourites in the contest so far?
Yes, well, later we'll be looking at the ongoing situation in Sri Lanka as well, as a state of emergency is declared over there. The military's been called in to restore peace after President Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled the country rather than resign as he promised. So what's next for that Commonwealth country currently on a knife edge? We'll ask an expert later on.
And finally, the cost of living payments are going to land in people's bank accounts this morning. I'm not sure it will help with that smart meter. To help anybody covering those enormously mounting bills. But if it's still not enough, we'll be joined by a HR specialist who will take you through how you can negotiate a pay rise with your employer.
Yes, something many people will want to do at the moment. Well, that's all coming up and much more as well across the programme. We are here with you until midday, and you can get in touch with your views at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
OK, 6 Prime Minister candidates. I was dwelling on whether I can get a pay rise. I'm quite looking forward to watching that. I thought our boss had vetoed that item, but never mind. Right, 6 Prime Ministerial candidates remain in the battle for number 10 after former Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt and Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi were eliminated last night. I was celebrating that.
Yes, well, poll results show that Penny Mordaunt is now the clear favourite for party leader amongst Conservative members. She holds a strong lead of 27%. That's according to YouGov.
Go on. We've just heard, actually, from Foreign Secretary Liz Truss. I don't know whether you saw that. We will be discussing it. We didn't think she said anything particularly impressive.
No, nothing new from her, I don't think, but we'll discuss that.
We will. She's launched her campaign this morning. Will she be able to steal any momentum from Penny Mordaunt and Rishi Sunak?
Well, the second round of voting by MPs will take place today. Of course, there was that voting yesterday, and the results today are expected at 3 p.m. this afternoon. One person will be eliminated in this round, and here to give us his predictions for who that might be is Lord Dannatt. Thank you for joining us, Lord Dannatt. He's a former British Army officer as well. I just wondered, let's start with Liz Truss. Obviously, she's Foreign Secretary, so a role you would have a lot of particular interest in, given your career background. Do you think the qualities she has shown as Foreign Secretary make her put her in a good position to lead Britain as we face a war with Ukraine? Russia's war with the Ukraine.
Well, it was interesting watching, as I think we all did a few minutes ago, her press conference, her campaign launch. I have to say, it felt a little bit like sitting in on an episode of Dragon's Den. I know that these candidates have all got to put themselves forward, but it did feel a little bit cringeworthy. Now, that said, and to be fair, she has been Foreign Secretary for a while now in Boris Johnson's government, and has been very vocal, very forceful in putting this country forward as the leader in Europe in the opposition to Vladimir Putin. So on that basis, she must be taken seriously. I would like to see that translate, and you'd expect me to say that as a former head of the army. I'd like to see her words translate into a greater spend on defence in this country. And it's interesting to see that some of the candidates are minded to go down that track. Tom Tugendhat, for example, I think is a candidate who is very strong with his potential. I don't think he'll make the final two this time, but I think he's putting a strong marker down for the future. But I think it is really important that if we are going to stand up to Vladimir Putin, and Liz Truss has led the way with Boris Johnson in that regard, that we do spend more money on defence. I think a land war in Europe has been a real wake-up call, and we must respond to that and make sure that the first duty of government, which is to protect the integrity and the sovereignty of our country and our people's safety, is properly looked after.
The thing is, Lord Dannett, I think at the moment the British people, as much as we are concerned about what's happening to the Ukrainian civilians and Ukrainian soldiers, of course, that isn't at the top of people's agendas. We've got items on the show today about the cost of living crisis. People are really feeling it in our supermarket trolleys and in our tank of petrol, aren't we, at the moment? So I think when Liz Truss comes out and does a speech like that today and maybe focuses on international matters, she's losing the room a little. And also she doesn't seem to have... she doesn't look like she has much passion for politics. She looks like she's been in it a while and she's a bit tired of the whole thing and she'd quite like to be Prime Minister. But in opposition to, say, Penny Mordaunt yesterday, who really seemed to speak from the heart, and certainly our viewers warmed to that. Who do you think going forward, if it goes down to those two, Rishi Sunak is very likely to be in those final two, of course, who would the general public vote for, not just the Conservative Party grassroots members?
Well, I think you put your finger on something that's absolutely critical. People up and down this country are very much focused on the cost of living crisis, and a lot of people are struggling to pay their ever-increasing bills. So you're absolutely right to say that is centre stage in people's concerns. So the big question is, which will be the two of those six candidates that find their way out into the public vote? Well, I think you're right to say that Rishi Sunak is almost certain to be one of those two. Will it be Liz Truss or will it be Penny Mordaunt? This, of course, is a decision down to MPs. And this is where Liz Truss will struggle somewhat because she didn't resign from Boris Johnson's government, as a lot of other senior ministers did. She says that she's loyal, so therefore she wouldn't resign. But it means that she is, to a fair degree, tainted with Boris Johnson's legacy. But Penny Mordaunt, on the other hand, hardly involved in senior government in the last few years at all, although she was Defence Secretary in the past. I think she is more likely to find herself as one of the two. And if it comes to the public vote amongst Conservative Party members between Penny Mordaunt and Rishi Sunak, I think Penny Mordaunt has a good chance of making it.
Yeah, and let's talk about Rishi Sunak, because as we mentioned there, he is, well, all indications suggest that he will be in that final two. What do you think his premiership might look like? Because whilst he does have a lot of support amongst Conservative MPs, it's not so clear that support translates to the general population. And, of course, he is also tainted, I suppose, by his relationship with Boris Johnson throughout the pandemic, by his closeness with Boris Johnson. Even though he resigned, he's still got that shadow following him, really. Mm.
No, you're right. And some of your viewers may have heard him speaking on BBC Radio this morning. I certainly did. He was somewhat on the defensive. And of course, it's very difficult, rather the same with Liz Truss, because both Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss are key members of Boris Johnson's government. They have to be associated very closely with his period in office, which had some successes, but it had some major flaws. I think it's fair to say, though, that the major flaws in Boris Johnson's government were Boris Johnson himself. A colourful character, yes, but one very much lacking integrity, which is really what's brought him down. But Rishi Sunak, he has got the advantage of having been Chancellor for the last few years, knowing how the economy is doing or not doing very intimately. But there again, Liz Truss was Chief Secretary of the Treasury, so she understands how the Treasury works. These are, and to come back to the earlier point we were discussing, what is the number one issue for people in this country? It is the economy. And below the economy, it's just actually how much money they've got. So you come back to Penny Mordaunt. She hasn't got that same degree of experience. So whichever way you look at these likely three candidates, there are pluses to some of them, there are some minuses to some of them. I think it'll be Rishi Sunak. I think it'll be Penny Mordaunt up for the public vote. Very hard to call which of those will win. I think I would probably slightly edge it to Penny Mordaunt, largely because she seems quite an attractive individual. She's not tainted by the past, and I think people are looking for someone fresh who might give us a fresh start.
OK, thank you very much, Lord Danett, for joining us this morning. Crossbench peer there. You see, the thing is with Boris Johnson, everybody always says, well, you knew what you were going to get with Boris Johnson. You knew what you were going to get, so you can't complain when you got what you were going to get. We have no idea what we're going to get with Penny Mordaunt because nobody knows anything about it.
Yeah, but I wonder if that's advantageous or not, because a clean slate is not a bad thing at this point, isn't it? Because so many of them have been tainted by the recent history of the Conservative Party, not least those fixed penalty notices, which, of course, I'm surprised more of Rishi's sort of opponents aren't making a bigger deal of the fact he was the first Chancellor to ever be found to have broken the law whilst in office.
Absolutely. Well, this is what's on social media, and that's why I think if it does go down to Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt is just going to win, because the public and the Tory party members, they're all saying, hang on a minute, we've got this financial crisis, we've got this terrible economic situation. Rishi Sunak was literally driving that car. He drove that car into the wall, and now we're going to put him in charge to make it all better. He's going to try and put in a central banking digital currency. The banks will be very happy with him, and we will be poorer. Anyway.
Yeah, well, they wouldn't be my pick for final two, but I think if it does come down to Rishi and Penny, what I'd say is may the best woman win in that contest.
To show a preference.
I didn't.
Probably. I mean, it's not a local, it's not a general election, is it? We're just, it's GB News. We've got opinions of what you pay us for.
Well, after the break, the first cost of living payments, long awaited, are landing in bank accounts this morning. But if it's not enough, are you considering potentially asking your employer for a pay rise? Because if you are, we have somebody who can tell you how to negotiate that. That's after this break and the headlines.
Thank you, Mercy. It's 10:34. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB Newsroom. The Foreign Secretary has just launched her Conservative leadership campaign. Liz Truss says she wants Britain to be an aspiration nation and that she's the candidate that can be trusted to deliver. 6 contenders remain in the battle to replace Boris Johnson, with the second round of voting taking place this afternoon. The results expected at around 3, and the candidate with the fewest votes will be eliminated. Kevin Spacey has pleaded not guilty to charges of sexual assault at the Old Bailey. The Oscar-winning actor is accused of 4 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of causing a person to engage in sexual activity without consent. His trial will start in June next year here in the UK. The attacks are alleged to have taken place between 2005 and 2013. Low-income households will start receiving £326 from today, the first of 2 payments to ease the cost of living crisis. More than 8 million households on means-tested benefits will start receiving the money automatically with no need to apply. A second instalment of £324 will be transferred in the autumn. The number of people waiting to start routine hospital treatment in England has hit a new record high of 6.6 million, and the number of people waiting more than a year has risen to more than 331,000. The government and NHS England want to eliminate waits of more than a year by March 2025. And a hidden self-portrait of Vincent van Gogh has been discovered at an art gallery in Scotland. An X-ray of the head of a peasant woman shows a portrait of the painter behind the image. He's in a brimmed hat with a neckerchief loosely tied at the throat, and his left ear, which he famously cut off in 1888, is clearly visible. TV online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy $1.185 and 1.183 euros. The price of gold currently stands at £1,448.48 per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News, investments that matter.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not Part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Good morning, it's 10:39. This is To The Point with Mercy Moroki and me, Bev Turner, on GB News. We are on your TV, online or radio this morning.
Yes, and now 1 in 4 families will have £326 sent directly to them from today as part of the government's cost of living payment scheme.
But as our South West of England reporter Jeff Moody tells us, there is still some confusion about who actually gets the payment.
Natalie and Alex came over from Ukraine back in May. For them, food banks are the difference between feeding their family and going hungry.
We have 3 children, and for us it's a very great support to get some food because children are eating a lot, especially corns and milk and some vegetables. Chocolate, yeah. And because we haven't found any job here, we are looking for it. It's a very great support to us.
Support too for 135 families across the New Forest. Before the pandemic, the New Forest Basics Bank was catering for just 25.
You hope that our economy generally will improve and that will help us. But at the moment, people are being hit from all different directions, and that's making life very difficult for them.
But help is on hand. The government is forking out £37 billion to help the hardest hit by the cost of living crisis. 8 million families could be waking up to a payment of £326 today, straight into their bank accounts, with the same again planned for the autumn. That's 1 in every 4 households. But there's a catch. The government wants to stagger the payment over several weeks so that the system can cope. So some households will have to wait till the end of the month before the payment drops. Other families won't get the payments at all. To receive the payment, households will need to have been claiming universal credit between the end of April and the end of May. If you've been earning during this time, your payments will go down. So too if you haven't received tax credits. And for pensioners, you will receive £300 if you qualify for winter fuel payments. It's a welcome boost for many, but Oliver Stanley from the Food Bank thinks there's no quick fix.
I'd love this place to be full of dust and mice, and there'd be no use for it.
Do you foresee that happening?
No, I don't. I don't foresee that happening in the near future.
For many, the near future is all they can hope for, and they're grateful.
And thank you, Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
Thoughts of long term are a luxury few can afford. Jam today, but jam tomorrow is another matter. Jeff Moody, GB News.
Well, I think it was interesting, those 2 Ukrainian refugees there saying, thank you, Boris. goes to show again, you know, he was incredibly popular, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And still is in Ukraine and amongst Ukrainian refugees who associate him with the he's their saviour in many respects, isn't he? So a bit late though now.
But just also on the presidential, it feels like a presidential race, doesn't it? The Prime Minister's leadership race at the moment. We've just been seeing that Jeremy Hunt is backing Rishi Sunak now, so we're talking about that a little bit later.
That's one way to kill your campaign, isn't it?
But our reporter, Rosie Wright, is across the story that we've just been watching that VT about, and she's at the Christians Against Poverty Debt Advice Centre in Lewisham. Good morning, Rosie. So who will need these cost of living payments today, and are the government providing enough support?
Well, the question about who needs them is a very big one. It's just over 8 million people who receive that payment today. A couple of them are in this room. I'm at Grace Church, Brockley. It's home to the Christians Against Poverty Lewisham Debt Advice Centre. People can get free, impartial advice, and particularly on working out a plan of how people can get out of debt. Now, Ruth is one of the advisors here who does that, and Alan is one of the clients. I'm going to start with you, Ruth. What kind of situations do people turn up here in? How critical is their need for a payment like we've seen go into the bank accounts of lots of people today?
Yeah, we see people come to us often at crisis point, you know, sometimes up for evictions or bailiffs knocking at their door, and they're just really desperate for help to deal with their debts and to get a budget in place so that they can start to pay off those debts.
You've been working with Alan. I know you received that payment this morning. Talk me through the process and what you'll be able to do with that money.
I was informed it via the news from TV, and then I received a DWP text into my phone, and it said that it would start today, but it didn't give no specifications, and lo and behold this morning it was in there. So it's luckily enough I don't have to use that to pay my debts, because thanks to CAP I've got other avenues to go down, so I can use that for getting my hair done, you know, maybe buying a bit of ice cream, you know, just getting the little bits and doing the little things that I can't normally afford, you know, that I've got a plan for over a period of time. And, you know, it should be just a given in life, you know. But so it means a lot to me in the short term.
You mentioned the time frame there, Ruth. Longer term, does this actually make a difference to people who really don't have disposable income?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great short-term initiative, and, you know, we're so grateful, and we're grateful for our clients that they're going to have this amount of money just to see them through the short term. But actually, in the long term, people have budgets they have to pay into week in, week out. And in order to pay off their debts and to afford food and electricity, gas, they need, you know, a sustainable income and an amount that will help them, you know, going forward. So it will help in the interim, yes, but we do need longer term solutions, and so people have enough to live on.
How much do people have to live on when you meet them here? When you go through their budgets and when they've paid all their essential bills, how much is left?
Well, often there's little or nothing left. So we work out people's income, and they look at all their expenditure, and we want people to pay all their priority debts, all their bills. But actually, at the end of that, they often have very little left for food. We're seeing an increase in our clients needing fuel vouchers. We're seeing a massive increased demand on people needing food, so we're referring our clients to food banks because there isn't enough in their budget just for basic essentials, and so that's a huge problem.
I think when you worked it out for me, I was left with £1 or something silly like that, and that was just after my basic necessities.
£1 what, for a week? For how long?
For the 2 weeks, because I'm not on universal credit. I'm lucky. I've been overlooked for that because I think it's because of the COVID, but I'm thankful for that. I'm really, really thankful.
Thank you for talking to me through sort of the details of your finances, and Ruth as well, how you're helping people out of debt. The reality is, and from the people I spoke to this morning at Debt Free London, this does a little bit. It helps people, like Alan said, OK, well, I can not worry about paying for my haircut this month, but longer term, when I look at how everything is stacking up, this doesn't do enough.
Thank you, Rosie. Isn't that interesting? Thanks ever so much. You're very familiar with CAP, aren't you? I hadn't heard of Christians Against Poverty.
In a past life, before GB News, I did policy work, and part of that was financial inclusion. So I'm aware that CAP is a massive charity which helps people in poverty. And we were just saying, actually, those are the good things about our country. There's so many wonderful charities, not just Christian charities, but loads of charities who just help people in ways that the government just simply couldn't. They give people so much time and so much commitment, and they give people a community feel. And I think we should do more to support British charities.
It's really wonderful. Now, for those of you who have got this payment, or even for those of you who haven't, we here at GB News, we're looking to do our bit as well to help you get ahead of inflation and price rises. So today we're going to look into how you ask your employers for a pay rise in the correct way.
Yes, well, Managing Director Heather Scales joins us from Heartbeat HR, a HR consultancy firm. Good morning, Heather. I just wondered, there'll be people around the country at the moment who are getting paid in a way that would have been adequate before, but now they're like, this is simply not stretching to my needs. Is it the right time to ask an employer for a pay rise under this economic climate?
I think it's a good question because businesses are struggling just as much as individuals. The other thing to take into account that normally businesses, well, certainly private sector businesses, won't look at cost of living. Often their increases are based on performance. So we would need to take that into account. I think there's never a right time to ask for a pay rise, but I certainly have some tips which will help individuals with it.
Super. So what would they be, Heather? What would your first piece of advice be?
Firstly, know your worth. So check out your salary, where it fits with salaries within your region. There's ways of doing this. Online tools such as Glassdoor will help you position where you are. But also think about how you're performing. So what you want to do is when you have a conversation, go equipped. So you have that salary data check, but also you've worked out and you've really thought, am I performing effectively in my role? So that's the first stage. The next bit would be about picking your moment. So really ensure that when you sit with your manager, you do it at the right time. So not when they've just rushed into work or they're rushing out to work or rushing to a meeting. The best time would be to do it when you've got a one-to-one with them. Go fully prepared and think about what you want to say, and think about, again, your performance and articulate, get that across to the manager. The other step is to...
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to ask, I find that really interesting what you say about asking for a pay rise and knowing your worth, because there's so many studies that show men overestimate their worth and women underestimate their worth. So I think in a way that's easier for men to do. Go to their employer and say, look, this is how I've been performing and I think I deserve this much of a pay rise. But women can be a bit more hesitant. How would you encourage women to do that if they think they're being underpaid?
I think prepare, that's the key thing. And also it's about having that really good relationship with your manager. I'd like to think that most managers build that with their team. But if you haven't got that relationship, I would say write it down, write what you want to say down, and it helps that conversation. And it gets rid of those nerves that people have for those sort of awkward conversations that we don't like. But the other thing is to consider is to be open-minded. So as I said, at the start, companies are struggling as well as employees. So think about different ways that could help save money. So hybrid working is a great example of this, where you can have that work-life balance, which we all want, but also you're saving money in terms of commute fares. So, I don't know, let's say for average, someone's rail cost is £20 a day. If you put that over a year, you're saving over £1,000. So think differently when you go in, because obviously managers may say, sorry, we just can't afford it.
And do you think, Heather, at the moment, because the workplace can be quite stressful at the moment between bosses and employees, because everybody's trying to work out what this new work-life blend looks like, and you've got employees, particularly, I would say, working mums or working parents, saying, well, I don't need to be in the office 5 days a week. I want to be at home. Does that change the power shift in terms of whether the employee can ask for more money? Because our boss is turning around and saying, well, it's all very well you want a pay rise, but you're not doing the commute anymore and you're not paying that money on your travel, like you were just saying. And therefore, actually, I'm going to cut your pay now that you're not having to pay for it. Is that happening and is that acceptable?
It's not acceptable. For me, it's around the role that you undertake. It's your worth, it's your value to a company. And to suggest that you would reduce someone's pay, well, first of all, it's unlawful. You'd have to get someone's permission to do that. For me, it's totally wrong. Don't we want engaged individuals that have goodwill, want to do more for the company, want to perform? Having posing questions like that to an individual is going to turn them off. Are they going to want to do more for you? They're not. So I believe people can ask for a pay rise because it is about their value, the value that they bring to that organisation, the value that they bring to that role.
OK.
That would be my view anyway.
Thank you, Heather. There's lots there. I took some notes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Heather Scales there from human resources consultancy firm Heartbeat.
I used to be I used to be somebody who could never imagine myself going up to an employer and saying, you need to pay me more, actually. I don't know what changed, but over the last couple of years, I found that I refuse to get mugged off, so to speak, by any employer ever. There is something in women, I think, that you're a bit hesitant you underestimate yourself, really, and men overestimate themselves, especially men in politics. They think they're far more impressive than they are.
And we will be talking more about those unimpressive men in the next hour. Right, Tory leadership from Cathy. You've been getting in touch. How come not one of the MPs who are campaigning for Conservative leader have mentioned what their plans are for tackling the elephant in the room, i.e. ridding our country of all illegal migrants, stop giving them accommodation, etc. Closing our borders was the big issue in the 2016 referendum. We had a guy in here yesterday from Migration Watch, and he was saying absolutely the same thing. He said, I've not heard any of the candidates talk about this
I think
explicitly.
Suella Braverman has probably been the most explicit in terms of taking us out of the ECHR. She has been quite vocal. She was Attorney General, of course, and she's has been quite vocal about why we need to leave the ECHR. And she's very much on the right of the party in that respect. And that's why she has the backing of the European Reform Research Group of MPs who are sort of the anti-Brexit coalition, pro-Brexit coalition in Parliament.
Absolutely. I know that Suella Braverman is very popular with a lot of the Conservative Party members. I want to know, where do they all stand on mandates, vaccine mandates, passports and lockdowns? Because none of them have actually come out and said, yes, I voted for all that because I had to, or I voted for all that because I genuinely felt it was my conviction. Answer those questions.
I think the trouble
and then we'll know where we stand with you.
Yeah, I think the trouble is as well, because they were in government, they can't say, well, I voted for it because I was in government, but actually I disagreed with it, because then, the integrity...
No, I think I'm happy for them to draw a line under it. It was all ridiculous. And now where do you stand on it as we go into the autumn and the winter? That's what. But like you said, maybe none of them are brave enough to do that.
Well, let us know what you think. You've heard our views, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Get your views in. And we will be back very shortly for another hour of the big stories of the day. Lots of views as well. That's after this weather.
Hi there, it's Aidan McGibbon here from the Met Office. It's a cooler day for many today before the heat builds over the next few days once again. Showers in the north, but otherwise sunny spells. High pressure is currently sitting just to the southwest of Ireland and around that high. Well, we do have some changeable weather and some cooler conditions for the north of the UK, for Scotland, for Northern Ireland, for Northern England. A good deal of cloud cover and some showers, some heavy showers in places, particularly over the Pennines, the Highlands and Grampians, and the showers will be fairly frequent around the Northern and Western Isles. Now, for the rest of England, as well as for much of Wales, it's brighter skies with some sunshine and still fairly warm in the south, 26 or 27 Celsius, but high teens further north, where temperatures are actually a little below average right now. That will change, not just at the moment, though. For the time being, we're going to see the cloud thin overnight and the showers ease away before another spell of mainly light rain, but some moderate bursts pushes into Northern Ireland, Western and Central Scotland. 13 or 14 Celsius for Scotland and Northern Ireland, 12 to 13 further south under clear spells in the south, so not an oppressive night. We will see more of those at the start of next week, but Friday starts off bright with some sunshine in the south, the cloudier weather further north and areas of rain moving through Scotland and Northern Ireland as well as Northern England during the first part of the morning before that's replaced by showers. And again, on the cool side with those temperatures, 18 or 19 Celsius for Scotland and Northern Ireland, mid to high 20s in the south, where it will be another largely sunny day. Into Friday evening, the last of the showers in the north clear away, and then clearer skies start to emerge. And this is where things begin to change. High pressure arrives this weekend. Widespread sunny skies eventually develop and temperatures really start to increase.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio,
On digital, absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know. The latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some...
Welcome. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Mercy Moroki, and Bev Turner. The Conservative leadership battle is changing by the minute. We're going to be bringing you every twist and turn up until midday.
Make sure you get in touch with your views. Tell us what you think. We know you have lots of them. GBviews at gbnews.uk. But first of all, it is time for the latest news.
Good morning. It's just gone 11 o'clock. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has launched her Conservative leadership campaign, saying she wants Britain to become an aspiration nation. 6 contenders remain in the battle to replace Boris Johnson, with the second round of voting taking place this afternoon. The results expected at around 3, and the candidate with the fewest votes will be eliminated. Liz Truss says she's the candidate that can be trusted to deliver.
You can trust me to get the economy going, to get money back in people's pockets, and to help squeezed families. Together, we will level up the country in a Conservative way, making it an aspiration nation. Together, we will continue to defy the voices of decline and stand tall on the world stage.
Well, Social Care Minister Jillian Keegan is backing Rishi Sunak and told GB News he has widespread support.
Well, if you look at Rishi, actually, he's got people from all across the spectrum, north, south, red wall seats, shire seats, all different wings of the party, all different views on Brexit, you know, different views on many different issues. He's actually united quite a large coalition. And as you say, he's also had pretty much every former Chancellor who is Conservative Chancellor who is still alive saying that is the right thing to do for this time. This is what we would be doing. This is the sensible approach.
Kevin Spacey has pleaded not guilty to sexual assault charges at the Old Bailey. The Oscar-winning actor is accused of 4 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of causing a person to engage in sexual activity without consent. The attacks are alleged to have taken place between 2005 and 2013. He'll now go on trial next June. Low-income households will start receiving £326 from today, the first of 2 payments to ease the cost of living crisis. More than 8 million households on means-tested benefits will start receiving the money automatically with no need to apply. A second instalment of £324 will be transferred in the autumn. It's part of the government's £37 billion support package. Head of Debt-Free Matt Dronfield told GB News there's been a huge rise in people seeking help.
Now, every little helps, and yes, it will go some way for a few weeks, but the reality is 2 in 5 of our clients that come through our doors say that low income is the reason of their financial issues. And when supermarkets are having to put security tags on a packet of Lurpak or cheese, we know we've got a real issue. And this might help with the cost of packed lunches for kids for a few weeks at school, but it's not going to change the game massively.
The number of people waiting to start routine hospital treatment in England has hit a new record high of 6.6 million, and the number of people waiting more than a year has risen to more than 331,000. The government and NHS England want to eliminate waits of more than a year by March 2025. The Metropolitan Police have opened an investigation into Sir Mo Farah's revelation that he was trafficked to the UK as a child. The 4-time Olympic champion says he arrived from Somalia under a false name, aged 8 or 9, and forced to work as a domestic servant. The Met Police says no reports have been made, but specialist officers are assessing the available information. Thousands of post office staff are on strike today in a dispute over pay. The Communication Workers Union says the latest pay offer worth 3% and a £500 lump sum won't help its members cope with the higher cost of living. The Post Office says the majority of its branches will be unaffected. And another 24-hour rail strike is set to take place on the 27th of July. The RMT union announced the fresh walkout after rejecting a pay rise offer from Network Rail, describing it as paltry. The Transport Secretary Grant Shapps says RMT bosses aren't interested in finding a solution. And a hidden self-portrait of Vincent van Gogh has been discovered at an art gallery in Scotland. An X-ray of the head of a peasant woman shows a portrait of the painter behind the image. He's in a brimmed hat with a neckerchief loosely tied at the throat, and his left ear, which he famously cut off in 1888, is clearly visible. Van Gogh was known to reuse canvas to save money. Amazing stuff. This is GB News. We'll bring you more as it happens. Now, though, let's return to Mercy and Bev with To The Point.
Well, good morning. This is To The Point on GB News with me, Mercy Moreki, and Bev Turner. We're on your TV, radio and online. And as you can see there, the battle for number 10
If you want to do that.
on. Yeah, it's that kind of music,
here
isn't it?
to deliver.
Well, we're going to be talking a lot about that battle for number 10.
OK, well, Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, she just used the word deliver, deliver, deliver in her speech, actually. She's been setting out what she sees as her vision for this country if she was going to become Prime Minister. We have got the last of the runners and riders there up on your screen, and we're going to keep you updated on who the favourites are in the contest so far, as candidates are left to face a second vote by Conservative MPs later this afternoon.
Yeah, a friend of mine has just said she sounds like an Ocado driver with that slogan, deliver, deliver, deliver. But
midwife.
Anyway, yeah, I said midwife. Today, actor Kevin Spacey has pleaded not guilty at the Old Bailey to 4 charges of sexual assault and 1 count of causing a person to engage in penetrative sexual activity without consent. We'll be bringing you more updates on that as we have them.
That's right. And also, other news today, Premier League clubs have lost £1 billion due to the COVID pandemic. That's about a week of Ronaldo's wages, isn't it? We're going to be looking at that in further detail. How can clubs recover from this? I think they probably will.
Yes, well, we've got all of that coming up and much more as well across the programme. And get in touch. gbviews@gbnews.uk is the email. We've still got some left to go to, so keep them coming in and we'll get to them throughout the programme. That was the most interesting conveyor belt in history.
Next one. Next. If you're listening on the radio, you just missed. We had a brilliant graphic showing who the final 6 prime ministerial candidates are who remain in the battle for number 10 after former Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt and Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi were eliminated last night.
Yes, and Jeremy Hunt, by the way, has come out and said he will be backing Rishi Sunak, while poll results show that Penny Mordaunt is the clear favourite for-party leader amongst Conservative members. She holds a strong lead of 27%. That's according to a YouGov poll.
So, Foreign Secretary Liz Truss, as we've said, set out her vision for a UK under her premiership at a campaign event this morning. Will she be able to steal any momentum from Penny Mordaunt and Rishi Sunak?
Yes, well, let's go to our political editor, Darren McCaffrey. Darren, what's the latest?
Yeah, very good morning to you both. I was at that lunch with Liz Truss, the Foreign Secretary, within the last hour or so, setting out, as you say, her stall, her claim to try and win this Conservative leadership race, suggesting that she was going to campaign as a Conservative and govern as a Conservative, though some might suggest that should be blindingly obvious. Though she did talk about, as you say, tax cuts, about sticking up for the rural economy, about taking on Vladimir Putin and Russia, suggesting that her track record within government meant that she was ready from day one to be an effective Prime Minister. But there were questions as well, too, about Liz Truss and why she had not resigned from cabinet. Why had she not called on Boris Johnson to resign? In many ways, given the fact that she's got the tacit, maybe behind-the-scenes support from Downing Street. In the end, why hadn't she called for the Prime Minister to go? Was she the change candidate or the continuity candidate? She insisted it was all through loyalty and that she was loyal to the government, loyal to Boris Johnson. Let's have a listen in to Liz Truss' speech, as I say, within the last hour here in Westminster.
We will cut taxes, helping businesses invest in their future. We'll tackle the cost of energy and we'll control government spending. We will create new low-tax, low-regulation zones to attract investment in communities up and down our country, creating new hubs for innovation and enterprise. We can revitalise local areas in the same way as we regenerated the London Docklands. We will review the taxation of families to ensure that people aren't penalised for taking time out to care for children or elderly relatives. We'll turbocharge the rural economy by focusing on farmers growing food and cutting the pointless regulation that gets in their way. We need to be honest with the public. This will be tough. It will take time, but I am determined to deliver.
In many regards, Liz Truss, carry on, sorry, yes, carry on.
No, don't worry. It's a rolling news situation, Darren. I wasn't sure if you were going to tell us what you thought of that. I want to know, what did you think of that on a personal level? You've seen all of these speeches so far. What did you make of it? Mercy and I thought it was a little bit vanilla and it was just a lot of cliches about social mobility.
Yeah, I think the problem for Liz Truss, and I'm sure she's very aware of this, she's not the most charismatic person in the world, and there was certainly a sense in the room that this was not kind of like a crackling speech that was going to kind of sweep people from under their feet. And that's quite difficult because at the end of the day, a lot of politics is about charisma. Essentially, you're a salesperson to a large degree, trying to win people around to your argument. Has Liz Truss got the ability to do that? I'm not entirely sure she has. It was in stark contrast in many ways to Penny Mordaunt's speech yesterday, where she seemed a lot more natural, a lot more chilled in many regards, with a definite hint of charisma. But at the same time, you know, Liz Truss is a very senior politician who's done lots of big jobs within government, who's very effective behind the scenes, and clearly has got the respect of an awful lot of colleagues. There were very senior cabinet ministers at that launch today, people like Therese Coffey and Kwasi Kwanten, and also Ian Duncan-Smith, the former Conservative leader, was there as well. So she has got an awful lot of strong backing, and she is seen in many ways as the candidate of the right, if you like. It will be interesting, and we're going to get this later on today, aren't we, the next round of results, about whether, if some of those candidates on the right, like Kemi Badenoch or indeed Suella Braverman, drop out of this race, will their votes go to Liz Truss? Could she, in the end, actually pull out a pretty good performance? And as I say, we are expecting those polls to open, in around 15-20 minutes' time. MPs will vote in the second round. They've got until 1:30 to do so. We're going to get the result around 3 o'clock. Again, you have to meet this threshold of 30. If MPs do not meet that, they're automatically out. And irrespective if they all meet the threshold of 30, one will still lose. Whoever is bottom of the pile, they will become the weakest link and will be out of this race. At the moment, though, in many regards, you'd have to conclude at the moment, and politics is based largely on momentum, but the momentum is certainly behind Penny Mordaunt and not necessarily Rishi Sunak or indeed Liz Truss as the three front runners.
And Darren, I've spoken to so many people who have been particularly impressed with what some might call the dark horse of this race, which is who is Kemi Badenoch. She's won 40 votes from MPs last night. Do you think, you know, these MPs who will not get to the top two, do you think they're pretty much guaranteed a job in the cabinet because they have shown themselves in a good light to MPs and to the public?
You're right, though, in saying that she has put in a very impressive performance. I mean, she is only 10 votes behind Liz Truss, and she's got the backing of some big beasts within the Conservative Party. Michael Gove can probably be most prominent among them. I think always when you get to the kind of closing stages, though, in many ways, those MPs start drifting towards the campaigns they think they're going to win because they want to be on board with the winner, don't they? And you're right, many of them want jobs within government. But clearly, if you've run a very successful campaign, and Kemi Badenoch certainly has, Tom Tugendhat, it must be said, certainly has, even though he's unlikely to make the final two, I think they can kind of probably expect quite senior jobs within government because they've demonstrated that they've got a swell of opinion and sway within the party. And ultimately, any leader who needs authority, who needs support, and also needs to convince people that this is a proper broad church in terms of the Conservative Party within government, will want to have them on board. So I suspect, yes, we will see some of the names in this contest definitely end up in a new cabinet when that new leader is appointed in September.
OK, brilliant. Thank you, Darren. Thanks ever so much, Darren McCaffrey there, with that noisy guy in the background who's always there shouting at College Green.
Yeah, I did bump into him yesterday, actually, for the first time in the flesh. He is just as irritating in the flesh, I can confirm.
We know exactly what that person's protesting about, who's always there. I can't remember what it is.
Brexit, something, I don't know.
I don't know. We shouldn't be asking, because that's what he wants us to do, right, when he shouts in the background.
Yeah, I think it's going to be incredibly embarrassing for Labour, for the Conservatives to have 3 female prime ministers if Penny Mordaunt is elected the new prime minister. And Labour's not even had one proper female leader.
You know, Lord Frost threw Penny Mordaunt under a bus this morning. I don't know whether you saw that, but he was giving an interview and they worked together on some of the Brexit negotiations. And he said very calmly she wasn't up to the job. And I had to ask Boris Johnson to stand her down. She didn't have any eye on the details. She didn't know what she was doing. It was a really shocking kind of stab to Penny Mordaunt.
Yeah, I think in a way, I think because she has been a more junior member of the government and any mistakes she has made at that level, you know, the public aren't very aware of what the more junior ministers get up to, and it doesn't make massive headline news when things go wrong with junior ministers. So actually, whether that will have cut, you know, with Rishi Sunak, with people like Rishi Sunak, with people like Liz Truss, they've been in the public eye for years, for however long, especially throughout the pandemic and throughout everything that's been going on with our trade deals. So people have had a chance to judge them. The fact people haven't had a chance to judge Penny Mordaunt might work to her favour.
Do you know what I think of Penny? You know when I think of Penny Mordaunt was when she took part in Splash. I bet you didn't. You don't know.
Right, yeah, the diving competition.
It was a reality show,
yeah.
and she took part as an MP at Splash. So wait till she's Prime Minister and all that footage comes out of her in a swimsuit diving off a 30-metre board. That will make it onto the news.
Yeah, well, there was this image of her in a swimsuit, I think in a Telegraph, don't quote me on that, not long ago, so...
You've been getting in touch. This one is anonymous. It says, I'm a member of the Conservative Party and a member of the public. Yes, indeed you are. I will not be voting for Mordaunt, nor will many of my colleagues. She lacks experience and talent. And as a woman, I do not believe in her trans men and women views, nor trying to pull the wool over my eyes, but I give her an A for effort in trying to do so.
Yeah, that's really interesting. What do you make? Because obviously we've spoken on this show a lot about that whole trans issue and trans rights conflicting with women's rights. Penny Mordaunt, OK, let's set the context. Penny Mordaunt in Parliament at one point said trans women are women and trans men are men. That's something that's now been picked up by a lot of people saying, hang on, do you really think this? If you're going to be Prime Minister, you need to tell us whether you do think this. She has said, I didn't really mean that. It's more complicated than that. But I'm still a bit uncomfortable personally with the fact she said that in the first place.
I don't really, but like I said earlier about Boris Johnson, I don't really know how she feels about a lot of things. And it might be that she says, do you know what, that gender ideology debate has been very much an evolution. And now that I've had time to consider, I see it with a different sort of nuance now. A lot of us have changed our positions on that. So I don't think we should, but crikey, what kind of world are we living on when we're just judging her on that? We can't be really. It's got to be more to it, right?
Yes, well, with us to analyse this, there is political editor of the Huffington Post UK, Kevin Schofield. Kevin, would you agree that it's more or less guaranteed that Rishi Sunak will be on that final ballot of two? Who do you think will be the second candidate?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think Rishi Sunak's definitely in the box seat as far as getting to the final two is concerned. I mean, at the moment, it's probably a toss-up between Penny Mordaunt and Liz Truss. I think it's quite difficult to predict, given that, obviously, MPs who are supporting other candidates will then be forced to choose between Liz Truss and Penny Mordaunt. So I think you're going to see a battle now between both of their camps to try and woo the supporters of the likes of Suella Braverman, Kemi Badenoch, Tom Tugendhat, as and when they drop out. I mean, that's working on the assumption that they will drop out. Obviously, their supporters would argue with that, but I think Suella Braverman in particular, I think, is looking very, very likely to drop out later on today.
I think so. Now, if Suella Braverman does drop out, there's been lots of pictures across the press and the internet this morning of Kemi Badenoch and Suella Braverman being best friends in their lovely blue dresses last night in Westminster and looking like they could team up. If she gives her vote with people who were backing Suella, then move on to back Kemi Badenoch, does that give Kemi enough to push into second place behind Sunak?
I think she's still got a long way to go. I mean, Therese Coffey was out and about this morning. She's in Liz Truss's campaign, and she was saying that Suella Braverman and Kemi Badenoch supporters should give their votes to her. So I think probably Liz Truss, if you're looking for a stop Rishi candidate, which is certainly what the supporters of the current Prime Minister would like to see, I think Liz Truss is probably the best choice for that in terms of the right of the Conservative Party. But obviously, Penny Mordaunt exceeded expectations yesterday, so I think she's in a very strong position. And like I said earlier, I think it's going to be a straight shootout between Liz Truss and Penny Mordaunt for that other place in the final two.
The idea that you say Penny Mordaunt exceeded expectations, I think, is really interesting, Kevin, because I wonder whether we just didn't really have any expectations of Penny Mordaunt because so many people are not entirely familiar with who she is or what she stands for. Does that give her an advantage, do you think? She certainly isn't tainted with the brush of lockdowns in the last 2 years as Rishi Sunak would be.
Yeah, certainly. I think she's played quite a canny game. I mean, she's been mentioned within Westminster circles as one to watch should Boris Johnson fall on his sword. She was careful not to resign. There was expectations last week that she would be one of the many ministers who resigned from government, but she didn't, so she can say that she's loyal in the way that Liz Truss was saying this morning. But at the same time, you're right, she didn't serve in Boris Johnson's cabinet, so she also doesn't have that taint, if you want to put it like that, because of being closely associated with Boris Johnson as Liz Truss has been. So I think that's what puts Penny Mordaunt in a particularly strong position. She can, as I say, she can point to experience of being in government. She was in the cabinet under Theresa May as well, of course, but also, you know, she can be seen as a fresh face because she didn't serve closely with the current Prime Minister.
Well, Kevin, thank you for joining us to analyse that in more detail. Kevin Schofield, the political editor of Huffington Post UK.
Enjoying the sunshine. I can't wait to get outside today.
It's meant to be 35 degrees on Tuesday, which is my birthday, which is so naturally it is the hottest day of the year, you know.
It's a good way to also put a little bit of a shout out for some cards and flowers on Tuesday, Mercy. Well done. Right, after the break, tensions in Sri Lanka. We brought you this story last week, but it is developing. They're on a knife edge after the president flew the country rather than resign. So what is going to happen next? We'll find out after this weather.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Join me, Darren Grimes, for Real Britain every Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. A news hour that comes with a trigger warning. Scorching hot opinion with prominent guests saying the unsayable and a little bit of weekend fun thrown in. Unlike other broadcasters, I won't be forgetting what the B in our name stands for. So howie in for Real Britain Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
Good morning, it's 11:25. You are watching and listening to The Point with Bev Turner and Mercy Moroki on GB News. We are live, of course, on your TV, online and radio.
Yes, now, some news that's breaking this morning. Kevin Spacey has pleaded not guilty to sexual assault charges at the Old Bailey, and our reporter Ellie Costello is there for us right now. Ellie, just bring us up to date with what's been happening this morning with Kevin Spacey's case.
Well, the two-time Oscar winner was flanked by security and by the police as he made his way through a large crowd of international media and into the Old Bailey this morning. There were crews from Hollywood and also from Spain here. Obviously, huge international interest in this case, considering it concerns an A-list celebrity. But Mr. Spacey was wearing a blue suit and glasses as he made a very brief appearance in the dock in courtroom 1. He confirmed his name and his age, and then the 5 counts were listed to him in front of a packed courtroom. Now, he pled not guilty to all of those charges. He pled not guilty to those charges, and they are as follows. 2 counts of sexual assault of a man who is now in his 40s in March 2005 in London. Sexual assault of a man now in his 30s allegedly happened in Gloucestershire in April 2013. And finally, sexual assault of a man also now in his 30s, and a second charge concerning that same man of causing him to engage in penetrative sexual activity without consent, and that allegedly happened in London in August 2008. Well, Mr. Spacey has always denied any wrongdoing. He has always protested his innocence, and today he pled not guilty to all of those charges here at the Old Bailey in London. He was then granted unconditional bail, and a trial date has been set for June of next year, and the trial is expected to last 3 to 4 weeks.
OK, thank you very much, Ellie. I'm sure you will bring us all of that as it evolves over there. Right, we are going to let you know what you've been telling us. Deliver, says David. The biggest problem with Boris's government was he just has not delivered on virtually anything. Liz Truss has quietly got on and delivered on the things that were her responsibility. If only the rest had, we would not be in this mess. I heard that pretty much the trade deal that she did with Australia was the kind of thing Ronald McDonald could have pushed over the line. I don't think
that's exactly the point I was going to make. In a way, what's the opposite of a poisoned chalice? Whatever that is, her inheriting that brief once we'd left the European Union to cut trade deals.
Yes.
I mean, it was a gift.
It was an easy gig, wasn't it?
On a platter, really, wasn't it?
It was.
Any minister, I think, in that position, regardless of how competent they are, would have managed to do that. But, you know, I'm not questioning her competency necessarily. I'm just saying, of course, she would have got those trade deals.
Absolutely. What else have you been saying? Do keep your messages coming in, gbviews at gbnews.uk, and also on Twitter at gbnews. The whole of the Conservative Party are linked with Boris, and as a note, over 100 fixed penalty notices were issued to the party. Only a few were named. So if we're to target Sunak, I'm not a fan, says, it's Patricia actually who said this, we should ask who else in this party or group of runners were also issued. I would also love some clarity on that kind of thing.
Yes, Sunak was the first Chancellor to be found to have broken. I'm surprised people aren't making a bigger deal out of that.
You know what? People are sending me... Since I said I don't know an awful lot about Penny Mordaunt, people are now on Twitter at Beverly Turner. If you've got more of this stuff, do send it to me. All this information about Penny Mordaunt. This isn't entirely flattering, and particularly about her connections to Bill Gates and all sorts of unelected globalist technocrats that might be maybe pulling some sort of puppetry strings behind the scenes. So I will read them all. Thank you very much for sending them.
Yes, well, after the break, Premier League clubs apparently lost over £1 billion during the pandemic. We're going to be looking more into that just after this short break. But first, the headlines.
It's just gone 11:30. I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. Voting has just started in the second round of the Conservative leadership contest. 6 contenders remain in the battle to replace Boris Johnson. They'll be whittled down to 5 when the candidate with the fewest votes is revealed at around 3 this afternoon. The Foreign Secretary launched her campaign this morning, saying she wants Britain to be an aspiration nation. And she's the candidate, she says, that can be trusted to deliver. Kevin Spacey has pleaded not guilty to sexual assault charges at the Old Bailey. The Oscar-winning actor is accused of 4 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of causing a person to engage in sexual activity without consent. The attacks are alleged to have taken place between 2005 and 2013. He'll go on trial next June. Low-income households will start receiving £326 from today, the first of 2 payments to ease the cost of living crisis. More than 8 million households on means-tested benefits will start receiving the money automatically with no need to apply. A second instalment of £324 will be transferred in the autumn. The number of people waiting to start routine hospital treatment in England has hit a new record high of 6.6 million, and the number of people waiting more than a year has risen to more than 331,000. The government and NHS England want to eliminate waits of more than a year by March 2025. And a hidden self-portrait of Vincent van Gogh has been discovered on the back of another painting at an art gallery in Scotland. An X-ray of the head of a peasant woman shows a portrait of the painter behind the image in a brimmed hat and a neckerchief. And his left ear, which he famously cut off in 1888, is clearly visible. TV online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for gold and silver investment.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy $1.187 and 1.182 euros. The price of gold currently stands at £1,443.93 per ounce.
Direct Bullion sponsors the Finance Report on GB News for physical investment.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
Good morning. It is 11:35. This is To The Point with me, Bev Turner, and Mercy Moroki on GB News.
Yes, well, a new report has uncovered how Premier League club finances were impacted by the pandemic, with Chelsea being hit the worst.
The combined loss of all the clubs was slightly down on figures of the previous season, where all 20 clubs lost $1.38 billion. A record figure since 2009. So what are the clubs going to do to make up for the losses?
As well, we're with sports broadcaster and a journalist, Aidan McGee, to discuss this. Aidan, when people hear these these sums, 1.3 billion or whatever, in relation to football, they say, oh, well, there's billions and billions in football. They'll make that up. Is that true?
Not really, Mercy. I mean, the thing is that the bandwagon just keeps on rolling. Every single year we say, football's out of control in terms of finances. The TV deal won't be as big next time. They're going to have to plug the losses somewhere. You're going to need more benefactors coming in to throw money at the problem. But that's eventually what they do. And it also shows that FIFA's financial fair play rules aren't really working because these clubs are not getting their financial governance in order. Most football clubs are run like ordinary medium to large sized businesses. You've got a CEO earning 300-400 grand a year. You've got commercial managers. You've got everyone else in the business earning the same money as they would do if they're working for a FTSE 100 company. But you've got this big hole in the middle, which makes it an extraordinary business, which is transfer fees, player wages and agents' fees. And this is the problem. This is why it's a bit of a basket case. That's why it's an extraordinary business. And Steve Parris, the Crystal Palace chairman, said a few months ago, he said, when you buy a football club, and as he did with Crystal Palace back in 2010, he said, you know you're going to lose money. You've just got to decide how much you're going to lose. So if you look at this year's figures, they're actually not as bad as they sound because there was a bigger loss the previous year. And don't forget, that was 2019-20. 2/3 of the games were played that year, so they had a full crowd in. So matchday revenue wasn't affected. This period that these results are covering today from this report, from 2020 to 21, there were no crowds at all. So the matchday revenue went down to an aggregated from 700 to 30 million pounds. That's a hell of a drop.
Yeah. Will any clubs go bankrupt, Aidan? Does that ever happen? Something's ringing a bell in the back of my head. Who went bankrupt?
Bury.
Bury?
Yes.
Well, that's why it's ringing the bell in the back of my head. It's literally my hometown.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to the residents of Bury that I forgot that. But of course they did.
They did, yeah. And there were 3 divisions below the Premier League. It's a completely different landscape.
Yeah.
They're living hand to mouth, those clubs. And the greed of the Premier League has been often criticised for starving those smaller clubs of money. And players still come from there, and you need that pyramid to sustain the clubs at the very top. But in terms of the Premier League and the finance, every year on year, we're saying it's got to stop, it's got to stop. The gravy train just keeps on rolling. And we'll be having the same conversation, I'm sure, in 5 years' time. And the biggest problem is wages. When you've got players earning £200,000 a week, that's where your expenditure goes.
Yeah, and I wonder how this affects, because obviously these clubs are huge. I wonder how all this affects smaller clubs, local clubs. How does this affect training institutions for younger footballers trying to get into professional football? They must be struggling even more, surely.
Yeah, they are, because, match day revenue is much, much more important the further down the pyramid you go, because if we talk about Bury as a case in point, they don't get the big TV deal. They get a very minuscule share of TV revenue to commensurate with the fact that they're in League Two. So it's all about the money that comes through the gates. That's the only revenue they get. So if they're not getting that, as they weren't in the pandemic, that's when you see clubs go to the wall. I'm amazed that only one club in that period really suffered and went to the wall. It's incredible. We're the only country really that have 4 divisions. And it's unsustainable.
What did happen to Bury in the end?
Bury they've gone down. The stadium is still there, Gig Lane, but they're reformed, and they've had to start at the very, very bottom. Now, at that level, they're quite a big club. Yeah. So we'll be back. I'd say within 5-6 years they'll be back. It is possible. AFC Wimbledon launched 20 years ago on a park because Wimbledon Football Club got taken away to Milton Keynes, and so they started on a park, and now those 2 teams are playing in the same league, which is absolutely incredible considering they were just started by a bunch of people on Wimbledon Common back in 2002.
So with these clubs losing all this money now, can you ever imagine a situation, Aidan, where they go to these players? Well, funnily enough, it's making me think of the conversation we just had a little bit earlier with our human resources lady talking about how to get a pay rise, and she was saying, understand your worth, understand your value.
Yeah.
Will there ever be a time when a manager goes to Ronaldo and goes, now, listen, mate, I know you think you're worth £2 million a week. Isn't that his salary is £2 million a week? It's something mental like that, isn't
I can't remember what Ronaldo... It's not quite £2 million a week. It's more like £2 million a month, I would say.
Well, hold the line, caller, and I will get back to you on that. But with his extraordinary... Will the bosses ever go, I'm so sorry, we just can't afford it. You're going to go down. All of you are going to go down. Because don't they love playing football enough? They do it anyway.
Possibly, but to a greater or lesser degree, it's about supply and demand. Now, lots of people who say that wages need to be brought into check would be calling for a salary cap. But the thing is, salary caps... There was a salary cap in football about 50 years ago, and it didn't really work because there's always some club around Europe or whatever who wants to pay more than what the salary cap is in your country.
Right.
But that to work, you'd have to have FIFA homogenising the whole thing and making sure that every league in Europe abides by this salary cap. Otherwise, you just see a brain drain. You just see or talent drain rather, in football's case. So you just see the best players saying, well, OK, there's a limit to what I can earn at Manchester United, so I'm going to go and play for Real Madrid, who don't have a salary cap, and they'll pay me £2 million a month.
So according to Google, which I know is not as reliable as you, Aidan, on sports knowledge, he has a weekly wage of $2.25 million.
OK. I don't know if that might include endorsements.
Oh, yeah. Right, that'll be all he's
That'll be endorsed.
I think it's about 500. It's in the region of 500 a week.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
£500,000 a week just
that's
for
what
the.
I thought. So $2 million a month, but he would make it up in endorsements. I mean, he's been, and don't forget, he's been earning endorsements for 20 years, and he'll go on to earn more from that. And David Beckham earns money from endorsements even now, and he hasn't played for 10 years.
I find it really hard to make my heart bleed for the Premier League losing so many billions. I'm sorry to everybody that works in football and thinks that's terribly.
No, look, it is, as I say, it's bloated by a television deal. The television deal is worth £5.1 billion. If you take that away from these clubs, yes, certain areas of their business are quite profitable, but lots of it isn't, and that's why, and as long as that TV deal's huge, it just ends up in the players' pockets. So that's why you see everyone says, oh, you've got to be rich to be in football, it's a wash with money. The owners don't really earn much money out of it. The people who own Manchester City have just suffered loss after loss after loss every single year. They've had success on the pitch, but owning a football club is not just about trying to earn money. You can make it sustainable, but you're not going to make as much money as you would in another area of public life. So if you look at Manchester City, if you look at Newcastle, those owners have got those clubs for different reasons. It's not about the bottom line. They're doing sport washing, big thing.
Sport washing?
Yeah. So that's Saudi Arabia the Saudi Arabian government buying Newcastle United, and it's doing it to kind of, enhance the state's reputation around the world. Same with Manchester City, with Abu Dhabi. That's what happened with them. Different people own companies for different reasons. Rupert Murdoch has several businesses within his network, or used to have, which made losses. The Times never made a profit for all its existence except for 1 year, but he had it because it gave him credibility, and it's the only paper that can be quoted in a court of law. So it gave him credit. Sky News is a similar thing. He loses £1 million a month. Even the new owners sustain that because it gives them credibility. They see it as giving them credibility. And as long as the other areas of the business are making money, you can kind of sustain it and pick up the shortfall from that.
Really fascinating.
It is, isn't it? And you only have to think about how popular football is to consider that Gary Lineker is still the only BBC presenter on more than £1 million. You should be having that job, Aidan.
1.3 million he's on, isn't he?
1.3 million. Taxpayers' money. Marvellous.
Indeed.
Thanks, Aidan.
It is. Well, Aidan, thank you for that. Up next, how is the weather affecting everybody? I mentioned earlier it's due to be 35 degrees in London next Tuesday on my birthday. But there are high temperatures everywhere over the weekend as well. They could reach 35 degrees. I've never heard 35 degrees whilst in this country.
Wonderful.
I think that might be a tiny bit too hot, actually.
No.
Well, is it too hot outside? That is the question. And what should we be doing to keep ourselves safe?
OK, let's speak to meteorologist John Hammond. Hello, John. Where are you? You see, John, you're outside enjoying the sunshine. It's not too hot, is it?
No, it's absolutely lovely. It's 20 degrees out here. It's perfect. But on a serious note, folks, by early next week, you can scrap 20 degrees. It could well be 40 degrees. I think there will be hundreds, if not thousands, of excess deaths early next week.
John.
The charts that I can see in front of me are frightening. So we all like nice weather, but this will not be nice weather. This will be potentially lethal weather for a couple of days. It'll be brief, but it'll be brutal.
Oh,
so,
John,
we can
So, John, I want us to be happy about the weather. And I don't know whether something's happened to meteorologists to make you all a little bit fatalistic and harbingers of doom. Because all of the broadcasts, particularly on the BBC, every time I've turned on, anyone's talking about the weather, they're saying that there's going to be tons of fatalities. But haven't we always had hot weather, John? I mean, wasn't the summer of 76, that was as hot as this, wasn't it?
No, and we are seeing more and more records, more and more frequently, and more severely. Some people always hark back to the summer of 76, which was a freak event 40-odd years ago, over 40 years ago. But heat waves are becoming more extreme. This is yet another one which is coming down the tracks towards us. And, I don't think we should be too light-hearted about the fact that many are going to die early next week because of the heat. 40 degrees, the sort of temperature that this country, I'm afraid, is just not geared up to cope with. So if you're an employer, I would be worried about early next week, how are your workers going to safely get to work? And if you're an employee, then I would be thinking or asking my employer, with potentially railway lines becoming buckled and lots of infrastructure disruption, how am I going to get to work? Should I be getting to work? There'll be COBRA meetings taking place over the next day or so in top-level government as just to how the country is going to cope with this kind of heat. And all the computer models are now in pretty much agreement that it is going to happen, and it's Monday and Tuesday. And if you go on the Met Office website, there's an amber warning for extreme heat for Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. I think it's Monday and Tuesday which is going to see the peak of the heat, when temperatures will be widely up into the mid, possibly high 30s, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if somebody hits 40, and if we hit 40, that will be unprecedented. The highest temperature we've ever reached or ever recorded in this country is 38.7. There's a good chance we're going to smash that.
So when you say people might die, John, and I don't want to be flippant because teenage boys do stupid things and they jump off bridges in hot weather and they injure themselves. There are lots of ways that stupid teenage boys can injure themselves. But I know what you're saying, that maybe the elderly, if people aren't looking after them, buy them a fan, get them some cool hot water bottles filled with iced water, whatever it is to keep the temperature down. Don't sit in the sun. Don't drink too much, right? That's got to be a big thing. We Brits are idiots, aren't we? We go and sit in a beer garden, drink 3 bottles of rosé and then fall asleep in the sun on the pavement on the way home. That's all a terrible idea. But do you think we're all getting a bit... Were we all just a bunch of wimps now, John? Like, aren't we all clever enough to work out when we can and can't, what we can and can't do? And actually, we shouldn't be terrified of everything.
Well, I think given that what's about to happen has never happened before, maybe we should be a little bit more concerned. This will not be a standard, nice, warm spell of weather. Yeah, when it's 25 degrees, we can sit out in the sun, we can enjoy a beer. But your body just cannot cope with temperatures which are as high as 40 degrees, particularly in this country where buildings tend not to be air-conditioned and where the infrastructure just is not prepared for that kind of heat. I know I'm sounding like a prophet of doom, but I think there is a risk that we are belittling what's about to happen to this country through the early part of next week. I'm a happy weatherman normally, but given the charts that I've got in front of me, I'm afraid we can't just brush it off as another heatwave.
OK, very finally, so you've talked to us about what could happen and what people need to do, the precautions they need to take. What about the why? You've made big claims there about the records that this could break, these sorts of temperatures. Why is this happening?
Well, there's a dome of heat building up across Spain and Portugal. It's been building over the last couple of days. And the ground across much of Western Europe is very, very dry. And dry ground actually heats up much more quickly than moist ground. There hasn't been any rainfall. That's half the problem. So there's just nothing to stop the ground from getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And we're going to see southerly winds begin to push that warm air further towards us, and it's going to start to reach us on Sunday. And as I say, the peak will be on Monday and Tuesday, before it all gets swept away by Wednesday. So respite will come on Wednesday. This is not going to last forever. It's going to be a short, sharp shock, but boy, it's going to be a sharp shock. And then it'll get back to normal later on next week. But this is symptomatic of what's happening with the climate, I'm afraid. We are getting more prolonged, more extreme, more frequent heat waves, and this is just the next one. And it could well be, I think it probably will be, a record-breaking heat wave.
All right, John, thank you. I hope your predictions of people being harmed are wrong. I'm sure you do too. I'm sure you would hope that that doesn't happen but next week. But thank you for letting me grill you a little bit like that. I can't imagine a situation in which I don't realise I'm getting too hot and do something about it.
Yeah, I suppose it is for the vulnerable people. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. I was on a train the other day.
Thousands of people that have died of heat stroke next week. I'm going to feel terrible.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I just think let's all just use some common sense.
Drink plenty of water. Stay in the shade if you're too hot. You know, don't wear your jacket and coat. There are simple things. I think we all know, we all know all those things, don't we, really?
This broadcast was brought to you from the Institute of Common Sense.
Yes, well, there you go. Let's take you through some of the other lighter stories of the day, just to finish off our programme today. Firstly, popular Netflix TV show Squid Game is continuing to make history. Yesterday, the show was nominated for the Emmy Award for Drama Series, being the first non-English language series to be nominated for the award.
Well, if you haven't seen it already, let me sum it up for you. It's a bit gruesome. It's a group of contestants who are in dire financial trouble. Sound familiar? Compete in a series of deadly children's games to win a huge cash prize. It's the kind of thing that the teenagers love. It really is quite dark.
It's really not suitable for children. How old are your children again, the younger ones?
Well, the 11-year-old hasn't seen it. The 18-year-old saw it and enjoyed it. But I think the 13-year-old saw a bit of it and decided she didn't like it. But those teens, those older teens, think it's fabulous.
Even though my 7-year-old obviously has not seen it, it's very, very gruesome indeed, she still knows some of the... It's become a bit of a cultural phenomenon when they're playing games on their tablets and things. It's done in the theme of Squid Game, so she knows what it is, which kind of concerns me because, in a way, I feel like they're trying to attract children into the franchise of Squid Game so that they can watch it sort of when they get older.
Of course
and that's a bit sinister for me.
Now, flying out of Gatwick this summer, are you? You may want to change your flight. It turns out that Gatwick is the worst airport for cancellations in the UK, with 3% of flights never taking off from the airport. That's about 1 in every 30.
Yes, well, try to find one out of Stansted. Instead, apparently, it's the best performing airport in the UK with their rate of cancellations at just 0.3%. That's according to figures from air travel intelligence company OAG.
The data also showed that British Airways are the worst cancellation offenders among UK carriers, nearly 12 times as likely to cancel a flight than Ryanair, which was shockingly the best performing major airline in the world. Ryanair gets such a bad press, doesn't it? I've heard so many people, I'm never flying with Ryanair again. It turns out they're the best in the world.
Yeah, but I think people's experiences whilst they're using Ryanair, that rather than whether they cancel or not, there's lots of sort of negative experiences they have with Ryanair. But apparently, yes, it is one of the best ones there. And very finally, Binman from York has staged a protest against his employer's ban on shorts, and let's just say the protest is very visible. Lee Moran says waste collection crews are required to wear thick trousers all year round for health and safety reasons, even as temperatures reach 29 degrees Celsius.
I love it. So to beat the heat, Lee Moran, you're my kind of guy, sported a high-vis kilt and high-rise anti-cut socks. I don't quite know, an anti-cut sock? Don't know what that is. Saying the breezy outfit, it felt lovely and very cooling.
Yes, well, while he says the kilt was a laugh, the problem of chafing in the trousers on a hot day was a serious issue.
I love it.
I'm not laughing at those who have that issue.
That can-do attitude, excellent.
I love when people take the mick out of stupid rules and just expose how ridiculous and bureaucratic some of these rules are.
Now, Australia's so-called tough love relationship coach has given some controversial dating advice that we thought we would share with you at home.
Yes, well, Jake Maddock says men should plan and pay for every date. Rightly so. This is important, he says, for men and women to slot into their masculine and feminine roles, where the woman is pursued by the man, which happens in pretty much all species, might I say, so why not ours?
No, come on, Mercy. He also says for the question of moving in, the woman should always move into the man's house and never the other way around.
If his house is rubbish?
Well, I know. If she doesn't want to move into his house, then they should find a new one together. This is so the woman can take the man's lead at home without having to surrender her own space. Oh, come on. Drag yourself into 2022, please.
Well, finally, he says there's no excuse for couples to not be intimate at least 3 times a week.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck with that, Australia's tough love coach.
No comment there. It depends on age, surely.
Well, possibly. But, no, I mean, that's like something out of Victorian England, honestly.
Yeah, but I think it's better. To be honest, I would rather be with somebody who has more traditional values than some of the stuff that comes out these days. Men of my generation, I've said this so many times, are useless. They don't know how to behave like gentlemen on a date. I don't want all of that. I want men who behave like gentlemen and have a sense of traditional values, not lecturing me about pronouns and feminism on a date. That's absolutely not what I want.
I don't mind it if they understand feminism. Some of my favourite feminists are men, but I'm not big on pronouns. But it's good, strong, kind, intelligent, sensitive, loving man who isn't afraid to hold the door open and isn't afraid to offer to buy the meal.
Well, all over that. Talking of strong, kind and intelligent, we've got Gloria De Piero coming up next. So is it from us here at To The Point for today. We'll leave you with Gloria for now. See you next week.
Hi there, it's Aidan McGivern here from the Met Office. It's a cooler day for many today before the heat builds over the next few days once again. Showers in the north, but otherwise sunny spells. High pressure is currently sitting just to the southwest of Ireland and around that high. Well, we do have some changeable weather and some cooler conditions for the north of the UK, for Scotland, for Northern Ireland, for Northern England. A good deal of cloud cover and some showers, some heavy showers in places, particularly over the Pennines, the Highlands and Grampians, and the showers will be fairly frequent around the Northern and Western Isles. Now, for the rest of England, as well as for much of Wales, it's brighter skies with some sunshine and still fairly warm in the south, 26 or 27 Celsius, but high teens further north, where temperatures are actually a little below average right now. That will change, not just at the moment, though. For the time being, we're going to see the cloud thin overnight and the showers ease away before another spell of mainly light rain, but some moderate bursts pushes into Northern Ireland, Western and Central Scotland. 13 or 14 Celsius for Scotland and Northern Ireland, 12 to 13 further south under clear spells in the south, so not an oppressive night. We will see more of those at the start of next week, but Friday starts off bright with some sunshine in the south, the cloudier weather further north and areas of rain moving through Scotland and Northern Ireland as well as Northern England during the first part of the morning before that's replaced by showers. And again, on the cool side with those temperatures, 18 or 19 Celsius for Scotland and Northern Ireland, mid to high 20s in the south where it will be another largely sunny day. Into Friday evening, the last of the showers in the north clear away, and then clearer skies start to emerge. And this is where things begin to change. High pressure arrives this weekend. Widespread sunny skies eventually develop, and temperatures really start to increase.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.